Carolina was embarrassed on Saturday. How are they going to respond?
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I want to thank you so much for making us your first listen or watch of the day to stay up to date on everything going on with Carolina. Special shout out to the everydayers who are with us, all the great Locked On Tar Heels insiders, and of course, our Locked On Tar Heels Discord community. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers, you can bet $5, and if you win, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets. Check it out at FanDuel.com. Okay, let's get right after it today. Got Wake Forest late tonight. Go ahead and get your naps in now. Drink some coffee. Hopefully, we're going to have a celebration afterwards and not another therapy session, but we will be live, even though it's a late one. Today on the show, we got our Four Corners preview. We'll get ready for the game in that way, get you introduced to Wake Forest a little bit, how their season's been, who you need to know. Of course, I'll give a prediction. But before we get to any of this, it's Tuesday. That means it's time for Tuesday trivia. Pretty simple one today with just one answer. What was North Carolina's largest ever win over Wake Forest, just in terms of margin of victory? Answer for that coming up at the end of the show. But before we get to the Four Corners recap, before we get to talking about Wake in depth, here's where I want to go. The more I reflect back on Saturday, it's kind of frustrating. The mediocrity of this season is frustrating. Actually, I don't think that's a strong enough word. The mediocrity of this season is infuriating to me. But like, you know, for those of you who are everydayers, for those of you who are with us all the time, I'm a very glass half full kind of guy. But man, the way things are right now is just super disappointing. Carolina is losing games that they should win. There is absolutely zero reason they should have dropped that game against Stanford on Saturday. And frankly, I don't know if it's worse that we saw this coming this offseason because of the roster construction, and now it's coming to fruition. Like, hey, things are probably going to be bad because of the lack of landing a front court guy, like we talked about yesterday, either because you didn't go hard enough after it, because you didn't spend enough money, whatever it was, it didn't happen. So I don't know if it's worse that we saw it coming and now it's here, or if we hadn't seen it coming and now it's turning out like that. I don't know what would have been more frustrating to me. Whatever the case, this team just simply has too much talent and experience to be okay with what happened on Saturday. All the other losses and other close wins aside, what happened on Saturday, man, I think for me, in a lot of ways, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. Yes, you're going to lose some in ACC play, but that one you cannot lose. A home game to Stanford simply cannot happen. So here's where it's at now. I honestly, I hope that the guys are feeling like the weight of the embarrassment of Saturday. I think back to my own athletic career where I grew up playing baseball, went to college on a baseball scholarship, ended up playing tennis in college instead. Like, I remember, because I've suffered my own share of embarrassing losses in life. I remember a game against like the number 3 team in state in baseball in high school. I think my junior year, I was playing left field and I took a bad route to a ball in the outfield and it basically cost us the game. I could not look my teammates or coaches or family and friends in the eyeballs because I was embarrassed. And given it's a great team and whatever, but you know what I'm saying? Just like after an embarrassing loss, you are so ready to come out and respond. And I hope that's where these guys are at. I hope they feel the weight of it, but More importantly, I hope they have learned from it, and I hope they're ready to just go out and set the world on fire tonight. That's the expectation. That's what needs to happen. And the good news is that hopefully is a fire that burns for a while here. There are plenty of opportunities ahead to make up for what happened Saturday. Not as many as if you played in the SEC as good as it is this year, or the Big 12. The ACC just doesn't afford that right now. But there are more opportunities to get wins, to work at making up for Saturday. But again, as we've been saying, the margins are closer, the walls are closing in on you. And I think part of it is it's going to take somebody on this team to step up and say, I'm not okay with us playing like this. Enough is enough. We've got to be better. We've got to do better. You're not doing your job. You're not doing your job. I messed up in this. Together, boys, let's get better. And that kind of critique is just what happens, right? Like it's not me trying to belittle the team or anything. It's me just saying, like, this is what happens when things aren't going right. You circle the wagons as a team and saying, all right, enough is enough. We got to fix something. My question, though, is who's that going to be? Because quite honestly, I don't know. I don't know who that voice is. Last year, it would have been Cormac Ryan or Harrison Ingram, and even Armando Bacot at times, who is more of a lead by example kind of guy, but he didn't mind speaking his mind sometimes and calling people and saying things. I don't know right now. Is it Elliot? Is it maybe Ian's feeling a little more strong now that he's, had the performances he's had? I don't know who it is. And here's the other thing. When a team is embarrassed or an individual is embarrassed, there are two options, and it's basically fight or flight, right? Like the fork in the road moment. We've come to that. Which path will we choose? For me, it was funny. I was thinking about that as I was watching the national championship game on Monday night, and I was like, you know what? Both of these teams have experiences. Both Notre Dame and Ohio State were that this year. Had a very embarrassing moment, could have gone one way or the other, and they chose to fight. For Notre Dame, let's think back to September 7th. You probably remember where you were when this happened. I sure do. I was at a retreat for the college I work at, serving Mexican food to students that were at the retreat. And one of them came up and was like, Isaac, look what just happened to Notre Dame as they lost to Northern Illinois 16-14. The Irish could have folded up shop right then and there and had a just okay season and been done with it and moved on with life. Instead, they rallied the troops, didn't lose another game until a hard-fought loss in the national championship game last night. Kudos to the Irish for fighting. With Ohio State, their embarrassment came later in the season, but their only two losses were that 1-point loss at Oregon, one of my favorite games of the entire college football season. And then, though, they lost yet again to Michigan in their regular season finale, didn't make the Big Ten championship game. And people are calling for Ryan Day's job. Again, Ohio State right then and there could fold up and just lay an egg in the CFP. Instead, they turned into a juggernaut. I mean, for my money's worth, they looked like the best team throughout the entire college football playoff after that Michigan loss. And instead, they bulldozed their way through Tennessee, Oregon, Texas, and Notre Dame. I mean, good grief. Both of those teams chose to fight instead of run. Will Carolina do that? What's Carolina's version of that? Get up off the mat after getting embarrassed by Stanford and just do something. One game at a time. You cannot win the ACC or an ACC tournament or NCAA tournament games right now. All you can do right now is get a little bit better today and a little bit better tomorrow. And today, the version of that looks like going to Lawrence Joel Coliseum and beating Wake Forest. A Wake Forest team where Carolina has lost 3 straight at Wake. And quite frankly, the Demon Deacons are in a similar spot to the Tar Heels. They're 6-1 in ACC play right now. They had a so-so non-con schedule. They've got a nice little winning streak going in ACC play, just like Carolina did before Saturday, but it's all against blah teams. Their 6 ACC wins are Boston College, 203rd at Ken Palm, at Syracuse, 124th at Ken Palm, versus NC State, 98th at Ken Palm, At Miami, 175 at Ken Palm versus Stanford, 86 at Ken Palm, although we got literally no room to talk there. And then at Virginia Tech, 170 at Ken Palm. So their 6 wins are all against teams 86th or worse at Ken Palm. And yes, you've got 3 road wins, but those teams are 124, 170, and 175. So Wake's schedule looks better than really it is. And so Carolina, I mean, Wake, though, to people outside looking in who haven't looked into it, are like, oh yeah, Wake's having a nice season now that they've kind of bounced back from it's non-con. So let's go change that reputation. Tonight, fight. Get up off the mat and do it. When you look at Wake, there's not a ton, statistically, there's not much that they don't stand out in anything. They're 190th in field goal percentage, 351st in 3-point field goal percentage. That's out of 364 teams. So you got to shut them off inside and make them beat you from deep, because they can't. They're 80th in the nation in free throw percentage. That's actually good for these numbers that we're looking at. 297th in total rebounds. They're not a good rebounding team. 322nd in assists per game. They don't share the ball well. 269th in points per game. They don't score much. 306th in bench usage. That's infinitely less than even Carolina uses their bench, which is much improved last year. And again, not a strong schedule. Carolina's schedule is infinitely better than Wake Forest. So you look at all that and you say, all right, here we go. Take it to them. Just go out there on that floor and just wipe the floor with the fighting Chris Pauls, right? Like, that's the thing. And all that said, this has been, I feel like I've been very critical, very down, very negative. Again, I'm just trying to implore the way a coach would do after moments like Saturday. But I also do want to say, before we leave this segment, I hope you're very, very much still excited about this college basketball season. Like, we get to watch these dudes come out and play college basketball. Like, this is why we're here. This is why you're watching or listening to this, because you love the North Carolina Tar Heels. And I know there's this whole state of fandom right now. And I don't know if it's because of social media or what, where it's like people feel like they just have to be negative and downer and all that all the time. It's like wild swings of emotion. One game you win by 15 and it's like, we're national championship bound. The other one you lose by 10, fire the coach, right? Like, I don't understand the state of fandom in our world right now. But I'm still so excited that we get to watch the Tar Heels play tonight. I wake up today and I'm like, yeah, I can't wait for tonight. Let's get through the day so we can get to tonight and watch the Tar Heels play basketball. So I hope that you hear that from me, even in the midst of critique. Man, I cannot wait till tonight. And I hope the same is true for you. And to help us get ready for that, we're going to get now to our Four Corners preview. Is Ian going to be back to being Ian, or was Saturday the beginning of a bad stretch for him? Hopefully the former is true. We'll talk about that and the rest of it in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5, and if you win, you get $300 in bonus bets. That's $300 to keep your action going. The FanDuel app, man, it's super easy to navigate, and there's a variety of bets to keep every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings to come into the app. So whether you're betting on your favorite team or you're just looking to add some excitement to whatever game it is you're watching, man, FanDuel has got you covered. Carolina tonight at Wake Forest. Unfortunately, the Tar Heels are underdogs by 1.5, but maybe you think they're going to win this game. I happen to think so. And so, maybe you want to get in on that action. Do it at FanDuel.com to join today and get started again with the opportunity to get $300 in bonus bets. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Four Corners preview. There's a lot to watch for in this game tonight. Obviously, there always is, but here's 4 things specifically I'm watching for. And if I could add a fifth, remember all those stats I just read about Wake? One of them that really stands out to me is how bad of a 3-point shooting team they are. Really, truly, if I was adding a number 5 to, if we could have 5 corners, a pentagonal preview, I would put it on, make them wall off inside, little pack line looking defense situation like UVA, make them beat you from outside. And if they prove they can do that, then you go guard them, fine, whatever. But do make it difficult from three, but make them beat you from there. All right, number one, Four Corners preview, Ian Jackson. This dude has the world on his shoulders because Carolina has been relying on him to carry the offense in a lot of ways. Before Saturday's 6-point performance, where he had just one field goal, the first time in his career where he did not have multiple field goals, the first time in his career where he did not make a three. How does he bounce back from that? How does he respond to adversity? I happen to think like this is a dude with so much swagger and confidence that he's not, I mean, I'm sure it's in his brain, but he's not going to be bothered by it. He's just going to go out and hoop because that's what he does. He's a bucket. And so watch for that, though. You know, how is Wake guarding him? They do have a little bit of size and can maybe do some of that, but they've got to balance that size between Ian and RJ and Seth. And how are you going to guard all that, right? And so just something to watch. How does Ian respond to really his first adversity in the conference portion of the schedule? Going to be interesting. Number two, when you look at the efficiency of these two defenses, they are quite similar. North Carolina, as we sit right now, is 36th in defensive efficiency per Ken Palm's algorithms, and Wake Forest is 34th. The big difference, though, is in the two offenses. North Carolina's is pretty close to where the two defenses sit at. Carolina is 43rd. Wake, on the other hand, is 152nd at Ken Palm offensive efficiency. So here's what that means. Carolina's defense has been coming along and coming along and coming along. All these opponents in a row now held under 74 point scoring. Even in the loss on Saturday, it happened yet again. But now, against a team that's not very good offensively, you got to keep doing it, though. You got to go out and shut it down and prove it again. There are 18 teams in the ACC. Wake Forest is 15th in points per game. So Carolina has to keep that going. And then on the flip side, Carolina's offense has to win out against the Wake Forest D. Carolina's capable offense, who has been, quite frankly, not as good lately. They've been stagnant at times. They haven't moved well. There's not enough team dynamics in it. It's kind of puzzling. It's confounding. Elliot Cadeau, really solid Saturday. He's been really aggressive lately. More of that. Seth Trimble had a massive impact 2 games ago against Cal. That was minimized some against Stanford on Saturday. I think some of that is just their commitment to a different style of pace, and Carolina wasn't able to get out and go, and Seth's impact was not as high. It's those kind of things. How can Carolina's offense be the turning point in this game? But it is Wake's offense that is the weakest unit in this game. So we'll see for that. Number 3 in the Four Corners preview. This is now, for Carolina, the 3rd straight game of having like a critical player that they just simply have to be able to shut down. In the previous 2 that they had to do that, they were successful against one and less so against the other. You might recall last Wednesday against Andrej Stojakovic, Carolina held him to just 6 points. He was the number 2 scorer in all of the ACC. Now he's down to 4, in large part thanks to what the Tar Heels did. And then on Saturday, they had to face the ACC's number 1 leading scorer, Maxime Reynaud. They did not do their job against him. He scored 25 points. His season average is 20.8. Now, again, as we talked about, what Carolina did well is he got his 25, but man, he had to get 24 shots up to get there, had to get 12 threes up to get there, and only made 3 of those. You can live with that. The thing now is that for the second time in as many weeks, you face the ACC's second leading scorer, because with Stojakovic taking a step down, now Hunter Sallis is the ACC's second leading scorer. So in the past 3 games, you've faced the ACC's one of the top 2 scorers 3 times. And it's been 3 different guys. They've been successful once, less so the other time. How do they respond today? Because similar to what Reynaud brings to the table is something that Carolina doesn't have a lot of, and that was size positionally in the front court. With Sallis, it's positional size in the backcourt. He's a 6'5" guard. Carolina doesn't have that with either Elliot or RJ. So it's more than likely going to need to be Seth, maybe even Drake some. The problem is Carolina's going to have to go really big to do that so that Drake can play down at the 3. I would imagine, though, with Seth coming off the bench these days, that Ian is going to get the initial assignment on Hunter Sallis, and he's got to be ready for that. While we just talked about how does he respond offensively, I think another critical part is what does he do defensively if he does indeed draw the initial assignment against Hunter Sallis, who presents a very unique problem for Carolina. Sallis dropped 18 on the Tar Heels last year in the Dean Dome. So watch for that. How does Carolina guard Sallis, both in terms of like who's on him to start the game and will they do, right? We saw some doubles on Stojakovic. He's not a traditional 5. So like Carolina often doubled with Jalen Washington. Saturday, they would double Stojakovic at times. How do they choose to defend Sallis, and who is it? Watch all of that tonight. Number 4, speaking of the front court, we've had some better moments lately, specifically from the front court combo of Jalen Washington and Van Allen Lubin. Lubin had his best game as a Tar Heel on Saturday, 13 points, a North Carolina high, played his North Carolina high in minutes per game. Just did a lot of things to help the team. Last Wednesday against Cal, Lubin had 3 blocks. Jalen Washington has been having some really nice games lately. And as a combo, I thought they were really beneficial Saturday, just not able to do quite enough as the whole team wasn't. How do they continue to respond? We've got some height to deal with Wake Forest. We'll talk about that here in a second as we get to getting to know the Demon Deacons better. Thankfully, it's not quite as bad as it was because Andrew Carr has gone off to Kentucky now. And so they don't kind of have that Twin Towers approach as they have in the past year or two. So we'll watch for all of that. But I want to see how that front court combo goes to work. And can Jay Witt hop in and do anything? What about James Brown? We haven't seen Ty Claude lately. I've been trying to figure out, like, is he injured? I haven't been able to find out anything on it. And so what happens with Carolina's front court? That's a key thing to watch in this game. All right, we do need to get to know Wake Forest better, who to watch for in addition to Hunter Sallis, and what are my predictions for this game. Plus, don't forget, Tuesday Trivia Answer. All that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Prize Picks, which is the place to get real money sports action. They've got over 10 million members and they've got billions in winnings. And with that, Prize Picks has changed the game when it comes to daily fantasy sports. So whether it's playoffs or the regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. And now it is playoff time and there's no better way to get in on that action than with Prize Picks. Here's how it works. You just simply pick more or less on the given stat of at least 2 players. And if your picks hit, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. I need to look back at my picks that I made. I didn't actually put them in, but we've been calling out some shots for the national championship game. And I'm wondering if they hit. Obviously, one of them was Quinshot Junkins at 0.5 touchdowns. I said, take the more on that. You're welcome, because that hit. The other one that I want to see is Jeremiah Smith's receiving yards. Ooh, it was set at 80.5. I said, take more. He got 88. So if you listened to me and got in on it, you're very welcome. I'm looking ahead now to the NFC Championship game. Here's some things that Saquon Barkley has, some lines. 127.5 rushing yards. Mere mortals, you might say less. Give me more for Saquon Barkley. Absolutely. Same thing as the one we took with Judkins, 0.5 rushing plus receiving touchdowns. Go more on that as well. Double dipping on Saquon there. It's fun to predict. It's easy to play. And with flex play from Prize Picks, even if one of yours doesn't hit, you can still get up to 2 times your winnings. And those winnings come in fast, sometimes in little as 15 minutes. So if you're ready to run your game this football season, go do it all at Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. So don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. Let's get to the details of tonight's game, in addition to getting to know Wake Forest a little bit. Carolina at Wake Forest tonight, Tuesday, January 21st, at Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum in Winston-Salem. 9 p.m. tip on ESPN. The FanDuel line has it Wake Forest minus -1.5. The Ken Palm line, though, favors the Tar Heels by 1 point. Basically, this game is a push, meaning just like we talked about after Saturday's game, if so much is seemingly so similar, you got to win in the margins. What are the little things that the Tar Heels are going to do to escape Winston-Salem with a victory and get back in that W column? That's another big thing that you need to watch for in this game. Little things, smart decisions, the right shots, all of that kind of stuff. Series record, Carolina leads it all-time 165-69. Funnily enough, frustratingly enough, maybe each of the last 5 games have flip-flopped. Carolina won the last meeting, Wake the one before that, and on and on and on, back 5 games. However, this is at Wake Forest, where Carolina has lost the last 3. We do not want to make that 4. Let's start a new streak. Wake's coach is Steve Forbes in his 5th season. That doesn't seem real, but it is, and it's after 5 years at ETSU. It's East Tennessee State University in Johnson City, Tennessee, which, by the way, is where my parents live, where Coach Rob lives. So there you go. There's all the fun connections. Wake right now is not ranked, but they are in the others receiving votes. They got 2 votes in the AP poll this week, or I guess not points, or not votes, but points rather, I should say. That's an important distinction. They were picked 3rd preseason in the ACC, looking like they're hanging around in that range right now. And here's what, remember I said, like, yeah, their record is looking pretty good right now, but when you dive into the stats, it's not all that impressive, and the computers are not fooled by it, because despite where Wake is, they're 77th right now in the net. This is a quad 2 game. You would think, based on just looking at their record, it would be, they'd be top 50 or really just got to be top 75 on the road. So they just need to jump a little bit for this to be a quad 1 game. Come on, Wake, lose this game, but then win a bunch. Thank you very much. They're also 77th at KenPom, where they talked about the offense and defense breakdown. So far, Wake is 14-4 overall, 6-1 in ACC play. Their best, really only notable non-con win was Michigan. And then their losses in the non-con were to Xavier, Florida, just like the Tar Heels, they're very good, and Texas A&M, who's also really good. ACC wins, we already talked about them, but their best was Stanford, which, again, seems but we got 0 room to talk. And their ACC loss, their only one is at Clemson, a very understandable L there. Usual starters for Wake Forest. They've had several lineups this season, but interestingly enough, they've used the same one the last 5 games, which just so happens to line up with that 5-game winning streak they're on. So the 5 starters are Cam Hildreth, a 6'4" senior, played his whole career at Wake. Thank you, Cam Hildreth. That's great to see in this day and age. 13.9 points a game, 4 boards, 3 assists, and a steal and a half. Tyler Johnson, he's a 6-foot sophomore transferred over from Louisville and is scoring 4.9 points a game. Efton Reed, he's the big dude in the middle, a 6'11" senior, 2 years at Wake, and had played a year at Gonzaga and a year at LSU. His production is down a bit from what he did last year at Wake. I think that's a combination of not having Carr alongside of him. But 7.6 points, 5.6 rebounds. Trayvon Spillers, he's a 6'7" sophomore forward, came over from App State. He's getting 10.3 points, 8.8 boards, and 1.4 blocks. So he's actually, even though he's smaller than Efton Reed, he's the dude you got to keep off the glass, and that's scoring more. So that's another name to know. And then the dude we already talked about, but the name we got to keep saying because you got to shut him down right now, the ACC's second leading scorer, and that's Hunter Sallis, a 6'5" senior guard, 2 years at Gonzaga. This is now year 2 at Wake. Was a guy that honestly could have stayed in the draft last year, decided to come back to school, and now he's getting 19.5 points. He's had a similar to RJ, has had a massive drop in 3-point percentage. Last year was 40.5%. This year down to 31.6%. So that is a big part. I said Wake's not a good 3-point shooting team. That's a big part of it. 4 rebounds a game, just shy of 3 assists a game, and 2.5 turnovers. So Carolina needs to get into Hunter Sallis, force him to make some bad decisions. 3 names to know off the bench. Juke Harris, he's a 6'7" freshman. Parker Friedrichsen, a 6'3" sophomore, and Alabama transfer 6'5" sophomore guard David Cosby Jr. So those are the guys you need to know for Wake. Prediction for me in this thing, again, FanDuel has it Demon Deacons by 1.5, KenPom, Carolina by a point. Give me Carolina by 5, 75-70. They're going to end the 3-game skid at Lawrence Joel. make up for the embarrassment Saturday against Stanford and get back in the win column before BC comes to town on Saturday. Tuesday trivia to wrap it all up. What was North Carolina's biggest ever win against Wake Forest? It wasn't that long ago. 38 points. 38 points. Tar Heels win 95-57 back in the 18-19 season. That's the Kobe White team. Leading scorer that day was not Kobe White, but Cam Johnson. Homie dropped 27 points, 10 of 13 from the field, and made 7 threes. Crazy, crazy. 13 different Tar Heels scored. Kobe White himself had 10 points, 5 boards, 6 assists, and 3 steals. Really nice game, and always good to just smoke an in-state team like that. Guys, that's it for today's show. As always, don't forget, tonight after the game, we will go live on YouTube. The chat will be open. It'll be flying off, whether it's a therapy session or a celebration. Either way, typically about 15 to 20 minutes after the game is over, I'll post about it in the Discord and on Twitter, and I'll send it out to our insiders as well. Speaking of all that, if you haven't joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord channel, we'd love to have you there. The link's in the notes, in the show notes, and it's free to join. If you want to go deeper, though, Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, man, that's a great place to be. I love chatting all the time with our insiders, feeding them information as it comes to me, sometimes early or in advance. They get other perks too, like getting access to all of my stats and charts and data. If you haven't subscribed to the show, it's so easy to do right here on YouTube for those of you watching or in the audio platform. But if you are on YouTube, man, just smash that subscribe button. We are trying to get to 10,000 subscribers in the first 3 years of the show. We got about a month left to do it and a little over 300 subscribers to get there. Come on, you be the next one. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tonight after the game, but until then, peace.